In the years after Britain voted to leave the European Union, the country introduced a major new immigration plan, the EU settlement scheme. Hi guys, welcome to our channel. If you're new here, please click on the notification bell icon so that you can always get notification whenever we make a new post. Don't forget to like, comment and share our videos if you find it interesting and if it resonates with you. And don't also forget that here on our platform, we talk about immigration policies, new ones, in case you want to travel so that you will know what's going on. All right, so today we are talking about the European Union. In the years after Britain voted to leave the European Union, the country introduced a major new immigration plan, the EU settlement scheme. It was designed to protect the rights of millions of people from across Europe who were living in the United Kingdom by giving them a lawful way to settle. The scheme was supposed to be a lifeline for those trying to stay close to family, build a life, and contribute to the society they called home. But as with many complex systems, where there is hope, there are also those ready to exploit it. All right, so while they're looking out for the good of other people, people are also thinking of how to penetrate and find their own means to exploit it. Let's see how that went on. So, between March 2019 and May 2023, an organized criminal network operating partly in the UK and partly through contact overseas found a way to turn that system into a vehicle for fraud on an industrial scale. Wow. So, some persons came and then they turned it into fraud. They started getting money underneath. Let's see how they did that. Their weapon was not violence, not sophisticated cybercrimes, but false papers, forged marriage certificates, and bogus supporting documents. Their goal was simple and coldly calculated: to make money by helping people unlawfully remain in the UK. While they are trying to fight unlawful or illegal migration, there are people who are ensuring that they are the ones that go about giving people access to go into the UK as illegal immigrants. This is so sad because we're putting up system to avoid something and others are creating system to aid it. All right, how did they continue? Let's continue the story. At the center of this scheme were four individuals, all Nigerian nationals, Nigerians again, all Nigerian nationals who became the architect of one of the largest immigration fraud operation ever uncovered in the United Kingdom. Their names were Abraham Alade Olarotomi Onifedaye. 1. Number 2, Abayomi Aderonsonye Shodipo, Nosimot Mojolosa Gadamusi, and lastly, Adekunle Kabi. All four of them together, they oversaw the production and dissemination of more than 2,000 forged marriage certificates. Oh my God. All of them tied to fraudulent immigration applications. They forged marriage certificates and other certificates that were necessary to get into the UK. They must be very smart. The operation was sophisticated in its simplicity. Rather than try to hack government systems or steal identities, they didn't do that. The gang created entirely fake documents that looked legitimate on the surface. Central to their method were Nigerian customary court marriage certificates. These are real-world documents recognized in Nigeria as evidence of a traditional marriage, but the one these four people produced were not genuine. They were manufactured from the scratch, names altered, dates fixed, signatures forged, all enough to satisfy the requirements of the UK Home Office when paired with applications under the EU settlement scheme. Now, what they did, some other persons, if they want to do some crazy things, they probably hack into the government system and get the government's real certificates, right? You guys didn't have time for that. They went to forge their own certificates. Every certificate they used, they forged. Down to Nigerian customary marriage certificates, they forged every document. They forged everything. To think that they succeeded in giving over 2,000 people certificates, wow, that's something else. These marriage certificates formed a crucial part of border fraud tactic. Under the scheme, foreign nationals could apply to remain in the UK if they had close family ties, including marriage, to someone already lawfully settled. So by positioning applicants as a spouse of a British resident, the gang could claim that their client had a legal right to stay. It was not enough simply to file a form online. The applicant had to be backed by paperwork that seemed credible. The paperwork in the thousands of cases were fake. So yeah, if you have a partner abroad and you want to go there, all you need to do is present your marriage certificate and some other your applications online, and you go there. So this was what they were doing. Now, how did these people get to find out that these were scam? Let's make progress. Let's get into the story. Investigations from the Home Office, Britain's Immigration and Border Authority, began to notice irregular patterns. Applications that used similar wording, identical formats of marriage certificates, and repeated address began to stand out. Oh, they started repeating address. Okay. It led officials to dig deeper, and what they found was shocking. More than 2,000 fraudulent documents had been generated and used across a period of 4 years. Many of these certificates had names of real British residents paired with Nigerian nationals who had no lawful basis to remain in the UK. Oh my God. Oh my God. So they even used real people, and at some point they had to just start changing the rest. They even used real people, real residents, and they were just using it on repeat. So I think that was one of the things that actually sold them out. All right, let's continue the story. The criminal investigation itself was the result of a multi-agency effort. Domestic team from the Home Office worked alongside international partners, including staff based in Lagos, Nigeria. The cross-border cooperation was vital, for it was clear that the operation was not just happening in London. It extended back into contacts and network that stretched across continents. Together, investigators pieced together the emerging picture of a well-organized syndicate focused on exploiting both the immigration system and individuals desperate for permission to stay. The trial that followed was not a quick one. Over weeks of testimonies and forensic examinations, prosecutors methodically laid out the scope of the fraud. They traced the forged marriage certificate back to the defendants. They showed how each application under the EU settlement scheme was supported by paperwork that the defendant had created, sold, or otherwise supplied. They demonstrated that each of those applications was a fraudulent attempt to circumvent immigration laws in the UK. Oh my God. In the end, the verdict sent a clear message. Abraham Onifade, 41 years old from Gravesend in Kent, and Abayomi Shodipo, 38 from Manchester, were both found guilty of conspiracy to facilitate illegal entry into the UK and conspiracy to provide articles used in fraud. These evidence show that they had been central organizers of the operation, the architects of the scheme. Onifade was sentenced to 6 years in prison, while Shodipo received a 5-year sentence. Imagine, I don't know why both of them received different sentences, because they were obviously found guilty of the same crime. All right, what happened to the other two? Nosimot Mojosola Gbadomosi, 31 from Bolton, was convicted of obtaining leave to remain by deception and fraud by false representation. Her involvement focused on the use of forged documents to obtain immigration status for clients. The court sentenced her to 6 years in prison, reflecting the severity of her role. She was the one producing the marriage certificates that were fraudulent. So I'm sure that's why she got 6 years imprisonment. The fourth defendant, Adekunle Kabi, who was 54 years old from London, was found guilty of possessing an identity document with improper intention. While the jury cleared him of the more serious charge of obtaining leave to remain by deception, his conviction nevertheless demonstrated his participation in the criminal enterprise. He was sentenced to 9 months in prison. Adekunle got the smallest sentence, which is 9 months. Others got 6 years, 5 years respectively, but he got 9 months, and that's because he was discharged. He was not found guilty of the bigger crimes. Instead, he was found guilty of just his involvement. All right, the sentences, totally more than 13 years behind bars, were among the most severe ever handed down for immigration fraud in the UK. Those were the highest immigration fraud that had ever been done in the UK. They underscored not only the criminality of the defendant's conduct, but also the threat posed by organized fraud to the integrity of the immigration system itself. So there's no way they could have done this by themselves. So obviously they had help. All right, after sentencing, the officials from the Home Office spoke publicly about the case. Paul Moran, the Home Office Chief Immigration Officer, described the gang as absolutely prolific in their desire to abuse our borders. He explained that the group's sole priority had been financial gain. Moran said that he hoped that the convention would act as a warning to others who might consider engaging in similar schemes, that those who exploited people's desperation would be brought to justice. They just wanted money, so they were busy trying to get people to come to the UK in fraudulent ways, giving them false fake documents and the rest of it. However, they were caught and imprisoned, and the inspector believed that this would serve as a warning to others who intend doing this, because when you are caught, you would go behind bars. So this should serve as a warning to as many that want to exploit people who are desperate. As the defendant began serving their sentences, discussions about immigration continued to dominate political debate in the UK. Questions about border control, asylum policy, and the balance between openness and security were hotly contested in Parliament and in public forums. The fraudulent marriage certificate case became part of that border narrative, a lens through which wider challenges are examined. In the months and years that followed, immigration officers remained vigilant. The Home Office strengthened some verification processes and how certain documents were authenticated. Technology played a role too. Digital system, biometric checks, and international data sharing helped close some of the gaps that fraudsters had exploited. But beyond policy and procedure, the story of gangs and forged certification and the thousands of applications affected by fraud was also a human story, one about ambition, desperation, exploitation, and justice. For every forged certificate uncovered, there was a person whose life was affected, a family hoping to reunite, a worker seeking opportunity, or a young person pursuing education. Some found themselves caught in a consequence of action, not just their own. It's really sad because you're affected by something that someone else did and you actually paid what you needed to pay. So yeah, really sad. That's why you need to be updated with what's happening so that you be informed and you know what to do so that you don't fall victim of things like that. All right, thank you guys for watching. What do you think about this video? Yeah, this is a very long one, but thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your comments about what you think. Once again, don't be too desperate. Do your best to be sure that you are taking the right path to travel so that you are not a victim of circumstances. All right, guys, we've come to the end of today's video. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.